Hey everyone, welcome to the Roundhouse Rundown. This is episode 31, and we have titled this one Dear Governor, or we could say it, the British way. Hello, Governor. So, where have you been? So, I want to talk a little bit about what would I ask the governor directly if I was able to sit down with her and do an interview. And so that's what I'm going to do. So, Governor, where have you been? Or we could say, welcome to the party, right? And I don't mean the Republican Party because there's a lot of things that we disagree on, but it's really interesting how on this crime issue, the governor has all of a sudden, out of the blue, become a crime governor, tough on crime. And I think that's been very interesting. All of us have a personal story of how crime in New Mexico has affected us. It used to be you'd have a story from a neighbor or a family member or a friend, but I'm pretty sure that almost every one of us at this point, especially if we live in the metro area, have a personal story of either coming face to face with a criminal as they're coming out of a store stealing something, or being in a store as it's being robbed, or having your vehicle stolen, your vehicle broken into. All of those, all the crimes that we see that are happening in New Mexico, all of us have a personal story about that now. And so I want to talk a little bit about the crime issue, but really more about, where's the governor been? We're 6 years into this administration. It's not like she just got elected last year, realized there's a crime problem, and now we're dealing with it. No, we are 6 years in. Where's she been? So, if I was able to ask the governor one question, it would be, where have you been on this issue? I have carried crime bills, especially a shooting threat bill. I've been carrying it for 6 years. Everyone agrees that it needs to be done. It needs to be passed. But the governor's never chimed in on it. She's never gotten involved in it. So I've just got to ask, why now? Why after 6 years in office, when you're not able to run again, you're termed out? Why now? What's your motivation? What's the reason that all of a sudden you are concerned about the crime crisis? Because this is not a new crisis in New Mexico, right? We've had crime in New Mexico at a high level for as long as I can remember. We have been on the top 10 list of most dangerous states for as long as I can remember. In fact, I can't remember the last time we weren't on that list. So where's the governor been? Why now? Are you governor, what are you running for? What are you running for? Let us know what your next step is in your political process, because it's one of the only reasons I can see. Are you preparing to run for the U.S. Senate? I mean, there's all kinds of rumors out there, right? You guys have all heard them. Is the governor preparing to run for U.S. Senate? Is she preparing to maybe she's trying to become the person that Kamala Harris is picking for vice president? Harris married her and her husband. So there's really close ties there. So maybe that's what's going on. Or maybe the governor's just finally realized that she's got 2 more years in office and her legacy is going to be plagued with the fact that the crime was out of control in New Mexico the entire time she's been governor, and she did nothing to address it. So I really have to wonder about the motivation. I have to wonder about why. Why now, after 6 years, are we finally dealing with this issue? And then my next question I would have to ask the governor if she was sitting here with me, and maybe we'll invite her, right? So maybe we'll send her an invite and say, hey, governor, maybe you could join Senator Brandt on one of his podcasts and we could talk about crime. I'm bipartisan, basis. But the next question I'd have to ask is, are you serious? Governor, are you serious about this issue? Are you really serious about this issue? Because, yeah, I see that you called us in for a special session, but you knew you didn't have any agreement with anyone. So was that just to make a statement? Or are you actually serious about this matter? I've noticed this governor, before now, anything she wanted, she got. Let me give you one example, and you can probably think of a dozen others. But one example is making marijuana legal. Now, I don't care where you sit on the issue. We're not going to have a debate on that issue. But the question is, or what I want you to remember is, when the governor wanted marijuana to be legal, the governor made marijuana legal, right? She came and she pulled us into a special session and she forced it through. She got the person that was blocking it in Judiciary Committee to support it. I don't know how she did that. I don't know what threats were made, but she pushed it through because she was willing to use her bully pulpit to get what she wanted. And she's done that with several other things. If the governor wants it, the governor uses her bully pulpit and she gets it done. Right now, she's going around the state on these, public safety town halls. Are you serious? Or maybe the problem is she can't get it passed because, let's be honest, she can't run for office again. And honestly, she needed to pass it before the primary because as soon as the primary election was over, the governor became what we refer to in political circles as a lame duck because she no longer has power to affect anyone's election. Right? So, she has some money, and so that brings some power where she can put that money behind people. But for most of us, we look at the governor and we say, she's got 2 years left. Okay, if she gets mad at me at this point, she just vetoes my bills for 2 years. Yeah, hey, I've been in that position before. I was in that position with our last governor. She got mad at me. She vetoed my bills for 2 years. So what did I do? I just didn't carry bills for 2 years. It was no big deal. I knew I'd be here when she was gone. And that's exactly, I think, what a lot of the Democrats are thinking with this governor is, Governor, you're going to be gone in 2 years and I'm still going to be here. So maybe that's what's going on. Maybe she is serious, but she waited too long. And then the other thing that makes me wonder if she's serious is last night, the governor at her Albuquerque town hall had Mayor Keller there. Now, I served here with Keller for a couple of years. He was in the Senate with me. And I'm just going to tell you right now, if you're serious about crime, I would not have Keller sit on the panel with me. I just wouldn't. I mean, look at Albuquerque from when Keller came into office as mayor to today. Crime has gotten massively worse. It's not even close. And let's talk about Chief Medina, right? I mean, the guy literally flees the scene of a crime instead of, showing some courage and taking a stand, gets in a really bad accident. And then last night, this is how serious Chief Medina takes the crime issue in New Mexico. Last night, he fell asleep sitting on the panel. That's right. He was sleeping in his chair. Hello. Maybe instead of Sleepy Joe, we should be saying Sleepy Medina. Because he couldn't even show that he was serious about crime for the hour or two that meeting went. Yeah, I know. I'm being a little tough today, calling some people out, but let's just be honest. That's how serious the Keller administration takes the crime issue. Is he's got a police chief that's so worried about the crime that's out of control in Albuquerque that he falls asleep during a public meeting about crime in Albuquerque. That's not a good statement. It's not a good look. Well, I think that as we, as I talk to the governor, I would have to ask about the border, right? Now, Governor, we know that part of this crime issue is a wide open border. In fact, Governor, you have actually admitted that. You have actually said that the border is an issue, a major issue, and it plays into our crime. So, Governor, I've got to ask you, how can we deal with the crime crisis in New Mexico and the cartels that are basically running the border without addressing the border being wide open? And you've tried to deflect by saying, well, this is a federal issue. But when the federal government is unwilling to do their job, the states have to step in. We've seen that with other states. We see it with both of our adjoining states, with Texas and Arizona. They've stepped in and tried to control their border, which has just increased the number of people and number of drugs flowing into our state. Now let's talk about it. The border is controlled completely by the cartels. Anywhere that the federal government's the only one monitoring our border, the cartels are the ones that are actually running the border, which has made it where unlimited amounts of drugs are being trafficked into our state. We've talked a little bit in the past about fentanyl. That's just one of the drugs coming. It just happens to be the most deadly drug right now on the market. People dying, all over our state, all over our country from fentanyl overdoses, or actually not even, they don't even call them overdoses. They're being called fentanyl poisonings, because you can take one fentanyl pill, which are dirt cheap, and die. So, Governor, what are we doing about the border to keep our communities safe? Why haven't we sent a larger state police presence? Why haven't we sent the National Guard? The last couple of times I've been down to Las Cruces, the checkpoint is shut down. There's no one there. So no one's checking for the drugs. You want to let the people in that you uh, want to come into the country. Well, at least shut the border down enough where they have to check in so we can make sure they're not bringing drugs into the country. And what about the human trafficking that's going on? We've got children being trafficked in and out of our country. In fact, according to the some of the organizations worldwide, there are more human beings being enslaved today than ever in the history of the world, and a lot of that's going across our border. People being brought into the country to work off their debt. We've seen this before, folks. This is not anything new. But right now, we're acting like it isn't happening. It's happening. But let's just be honest, these cartels, they don't just traffic in drugs and human beings. These cartels literally traffic in anything that makes them money. Exotic animals, currency, traffic in everything. If they can make a buck on it, they're going to traffic it. As we talk about the border, I think we've got to address something else. I think we have to address the situation in our country. Speaking of the border, how can we not talk about the border czar, Kamala Harris? How can we not? I mean, our governor, tell us a little bit about why you're on the advisory board for the Harris campaign. Are you advising her to shut down the border? Because that would be great. Are you advising her right now to go back to Trump's policies and close the border down? Because that would be wonderful. Kamala Harris was supposed to go down and figure out remember when she said she was going to deal with the root causes. How do you deal with root causes of what's happening at the border when you refuse to even visit the border? To this day, the border czar has never visited the border. I doesn't it doesn't like compute. Doesn't work. How can you address a problem as the border czar, which is what Biden appointed her to do? He said, because every president gives their vice president a specific task. And the task that Biden gave to Kamala Harris was to deal with the border issues. Well, under her dealing with the border, we have the most illegal crossings in U.S. history. We've never had so many illegal crossings before. Then let's talk a little bit about, I get really tired of being, told that Republicans don't care about the democratic process. First of all, I do want to say we are not a democracy. I know a lot of people don't understand that, but we are a republic. And there's a difference between a democracy and a republic. With a democracy, everyone votes on everything. And it's the majority rules. There are no rights for the minority in a democracy. It's all about the majority. A republic, you elect the people that are going to represent you in government. And then you're supposed to kind of pay attention to what they do. And if they're not representing you the way you want them to, then you vote them out of office. And we don't seem to understand that part. But here we have Kamala Harris, who's going to be the nominee for the Democrat Party. The party that takes their name from Democratic. And yet she has not had a single person vote for her in the primary. Not one. Not one person. But she's going to be the nominee for the people that say that Republicans are trying to destroy democracy. Wow. Talk about hypocrites. Well, we could take a few minutes to talk about Kamala Harris's accomplishments. There you go. We're done. That didn't take long. Oh, wait a minute. She does have one. She has one accomplishment. She raised money to let rioters out of prison and ended up getting murderers released from prison that went out and killed more people. There's her one accomplishment. Great job. What a winner. And this is who the Democrats are going to put up for our next president. Lord help us. Hey, thank you for joining me. I hope that you enjoyed our segment today. We're going to probably continue to talk about this crime situation over the next several weeks because, quite frankly, it is a crisis. It's a crisis situation that every one of us that live in the state are having to deal with, and it's all over our country, not just New Mexico. Continue to join us. I hope to see you next week. We're going to hopefully have a special guest with us next week who's a retired law enforcement officer. I think he'll be able to bring a lot of perspective to what's happening in our communities. So join us next week. If you want to be in touch with us, comment underneath the Facebook page, or you can always email me at senate40@gmail.com. See you next week. Have a good week. God bless y'all.